Hamster! Have you tried these new plasmids? They're amazing!
Oh, it's just the new fad bomb. Get a grip.
So levitation and mind control powers are just a fad, huh?
What kind of mind control powers?
Like possessions, illusions, and really pissing people off.
I've already got that last power. You know, I think I could do without all that.
But haven't you ever wanted to shoot fire or lightning out of your hands?
Doesn't that sound a tiny bit dangerous to you?
Don't be a pansy. All you gotta do is stick yourself with this massive needle and pow! You can create tornadoes, freeze people solid, and shoot clouds of angry bees right from your fingers!
And you just accepted all this without the tiniest bit of consideration for the potential side effects, right?
Yeah, right, like I'm bothered by a little bit of indigestion and chronic headaches and Niagara-level hemorrhoids.
Yeah, sorry. I think I'm just fine without all the giant needles and insurance claims. Thank you very much.
But I can shoot bees from my hands whenever I want!
Why would you ever want that? I've been meaning to play Bioshock blind on my channel for well over half a decade, but there was always something else keeping me busy. Eventually, I just gave in and just played it offline. This is one of those games you hear a lot of praise about, but need to go into blind to experience to its fullest. So I did. Alone. In the dark. Bioshock is such a strange blend of genres and settings that it still feels unique to this day. It's been such a long time coming for Bioshock content to hit the channel, and with how much there is to say about the game, I'm nervous I'm gonna accidentally sell it short or something. You shoot people in the 60s version of Atlantis while injecting yourself with absurd superpowers to escape a sunken madhouse. Show some respect, would you kindly? Okay, so to fairly look at Half-Life with superpowers. Even though that alone sounds amazing, you know very well that even that is selling it short. You acquire crazy genetic enhancements in the form of plasmids that help you explore new locales as well as acquire an arsenal of weapons that help you survive the vast sunken city. Those weapons are pretty par for the course with any FPS, but the game encourages experimental ammo crafting and ability combinations in such a wild way that no matter how you fight, it always feels unique and clever. You can shock groups of enemies standing in water, incinerate spilt oil, and creatively use the environment to your benefit in almost any way imaginable. There are so many innovative gameplay concepts like photographing enemies to uncover their characteristics and hacking security drones and vending machines that the game ends up just bursting with creative freedom. Mr. Bubbles over here also neglected to mention that this is a horror game, so be prepared for psychotic, genetically enhanced freaks called splicers to swarm you in the dark with increasingly bizarre and disturbing bosses along the way. And of course, you can't forget about the terrifying juggernauts that are the Big Daddies, who protect the little sisters while they harvest the genetic altering atom from downed splicers. You'll actually get an alternate ending if you decide to spare and ultimately free the little sisters, or kill them and selfishly suck up the collected atom yourself. You slowly accumulate atom throughout the game and spend it on new plasmids and various upgrades, so it's definitely tempting to snag up as much as you can to become a superhuman powerhouse. But with all this and even more we don't even have time to mention, like stat-enhancing tonics, the Sunken City has a ton to uncover if you're willing to search off the beaten path in this semi-open world map. I appreciate that for the inexperienced players, punishment for dying is practically non-existent, as you simply awaken at the nearest Vita chamber instantly, released like a rat back into an electric maze. The game gets to be scary as any other horror shooter, but without the punishing drawbacks to newcomers. This game is still creepy, man. It certainly had me freaked out on several occasions from creepy horror suspense and tense, frantic encounters. You know what, you're right. Even jokingly calling Bioshock Half-Life isn't doing it enough justice, even though your starting weapon is a pipe wrench in a clear homage. This semi-open world survival horror shooter with RPG elements is definitely so much more than that. It's much more like a... You just want to talk about Metroid, don't you? Would you kindly change the subject? Considering the age of this game, it looks pretty darn good, and it's been ported over to more systems and collector editions that you can practically play it on anything, and it looks great on pretty much everything. Graphics really matter in a horror game, as does thematic lighting and believable characterization through the visuals. Though some bits are a little over the top, for the most part the entire game does a great job at retaining its established horror. I particularly love the 60s style animations and graphics used for the advertisements and vending machines found across Rapture. It establishes the time period, but also nails this perfect, odd, crazy, campy, corny 60s horror theme that the game is aiming for. Some characters and animations can look a little jarring when the poly count or animations aren't perfect, but honestly, when you notice it this scarcely in a game, it only means that everything else looks well enough to blend right into the illusion. Yeah, the game looked good and all, but the biggest takeaway was the story. So would you kindly get a move on and switch sections? I'm getting antsy. Thanks. Though we highly encourage you play this game yourself firsthand, this story is simply too good to not talk about, so be warned for some incoming spoilers. You play as Jack, stranded on a lone lighthouse in the middle of the ocean after a treacherous plane crash. Jack discovers a mini-sub inside the mysterious lighthouse, transporting him to the dystopian underwater city of Rapture. Jack discovers Rapture to be swarmed with genetically enhanced psychotic inhabitants called splicers. A man named Atlas gives Jack the guidance he needs over radio in order to survive the frantic, anarchistic, submerged city. You'll find audio tapes left by various characters, helping you piece together the city's history before the psycho carnage all went down. These interactions help you get a better understanding of the boss characters and environments you encounter throughout Rapture. And it's perfect for thematic atmosphere. Rapture used to be a bustling, sunken city of the elite high class, until the gene-altering drug Adam was introduced, causing a civil war between its inhabitants, seeking power at any cost. Atlas warns Jack of Andrew Ryan, the founder of Rapture, controlling what remains of the scattered, warring refugees stranded in the sunken city. And after Ryan blows up an escaped submarine containing Atlas's wife and child, Atlas sends Jack Ryan's way in a rage in order to kill the tyrant once and for all. Once Jack fights his way through several corrupted characters, all obsessed with various elements of Rapture's former glory and frighteningly unrestrained ideals, he finally discovers Ryan, who surprisingly isn't at all afraid of him or his murderous intent. Ryan then drops an info bomb on Jack, informing him that Jack is just a genetically controlled pawn of Atlas, who turns out to be a long-thought-dead rival mob boss of Rapture, seeking to overthrow Ryan and use Rapture for his own selfish goals. Frank Fontaine. The freakiest revelation is that Atlas has been controlling you this whole time by using a psychologically implanted trigger command, "Would you kindly?" to force Jack to do his bidding whenever he spoke that phrase. This immediately reminds you of all of the instances Atlas used the phrase on you, when, to progress the game's story, you had no choice but to follow his seemingly innocent orders. Ryan acknowledges Jack's skepticism, so he uses the trigger phrase to force Jack to kill him to prove Jack's lack of free will. And just as before, you have no choice but to carry out his orders and kill the man in cold blood. Who, by the way, is also your father, but that's another story. With the help of the rogue Dr. Tenenbaum, Jack manages to free himself of Fontaine's control, allowing him to hunt down the manipulator and stop his crazed coup of Rapture in a crazy Adam-fueled final boss fight. Dr. Tenenbaum, who was protecting the little sisters this whole time, will then narrate the alternate endings, based on the player's decision to either spare or harvest the little sisters for their Adam, where Jack rescues the girls and raises them for his own, or gets reprimanded for being a heartless monster, enabling the splicers to inadvertently escape Rapture and presumably wreak havoc on the world above. Aside from the amazing plot twist, this story is amazing for its incredible characterization and snippets of audio transactions, allowing the player to discover the truth behind the dystopia at their own pace. Kind of like Metroid Prime. But let's talk about that soundtrack. Hey, I wasn't done. Would you kindly? Okay, so I know each section of this review is making this game out to be super innovative and incredible, but the music is just simply perfect for this game. Welcome to the circus of values! And by perfect, I mean the sound design is equally scary and authentically aristocratic 60s. I love the old music playing while overlaid horror music drapes the scenes in a whole new light. The odd juxtaposition is, in a large part, what makes the setting feel so immersive. I even love the sound effects and weird background noises that you hear throughout Rapture, like the weird, dark, cold calls of like wails made by the big daddies to the little sisters. It's incredibly suspenseful, and anything less would have caused the game to lose its frighteningly immersive design framework. We didn't even have time to mention how funny this game can be at times, with silly quips and comically over-the-top horror themes coming off like intentionally corny, but still awesome B-movie skits. And this is all accomplished with great voice acting and sound design. God, that vending machine creeps me out every time. Kill your cravings at the circus of values! I know this game sounds like a bizarre mix of unfitting themes and genres, but trust me, it all comes together beautifully. Ever been in an insane asylum? Well, imagine being trapped inside, the inmates all got loose, and had guns and superpowers. If you love deep lore in your games but can also go for the occasional gag in a horror game, then Bioshock is right up your alley. Would you be willing to stick a needle the size of a caulking gun into your arm with the hopes of gaining superpowers? Then you're probably already crazy enough to blindly scarf down a half-eaten hot dog out of the garbage can. You'll fit in perfectly here. The positive gamer in me had a blast with Bioshock, awarding it with a spliced up 10 out of 10. The gameplay was creative and constantly evolving. The story was captivating and driven by a superbly arranged soundtrack. The only thing I was left wanting after completing this masterpiece was an excuse to descend back into Rapture once again. The critical gamer in me found little to complain about in Bioshock and feels that it still deserves a powerful 9 out of 10. Some instances of the game can leave you a tad lost and confused, and all around could just use a little bit more polish. But know that it is so good that I nearly awarded it with a second 10 out of 10, were it not for the fact that I already know that this game can, and does, climb to new heights in the future. But what do you think? Share how your positive and critical sides rate Bioshock in the comments below. Bioshock is no doubt one of those rare games that deserves its fame. But if you think its innovations and creativity aren't worth memorializing, then you're just playing with yourself. Do you have an idea for a new episode of Playing With Myself? Join the discussion over on Discord using the new Patreon perks to nominate and vote for future episodes. The Patreon members get first picks, so check out the links in the description for some more information. As always, thank you to our amazing Patreon members: Atomic Thomas, Arrow, Kai, Ben, Rowan, Erica, Squad Fam, Sid, and Denny. Remember to like the videos and subscribe for more. I will see you guys in the next video.